Thanks for joining the session today. We're going to be talking about setting up log alerts. This is the Accelatis Essentials series, and just a quick reminder, 15-minute long session with the focus on a particular subject. So we're not going to do Q&A afterwards, but if you have any questions, go ahead and just make a note yourself, and you can email us after the session. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions. So we'll jump right into the log management module. So the module is called log management, but really this is where you set up log alerts. You'll notice there's a discrepancy in the verbiage at the top, but in order to get into the module, you click on the top log management and it will open up your log alerts tab that you see on my screen in front of you. The controls for the log management module, not that many of them. Basically, if you look at the top of the screen, left to right, you've got a refresh button. In case you change any information, you can just hit that refresh and it'll show you what's new. The green plus is an add button, so you can add a log alert. Of course, the red minus is remove the log alert. There's also a button to copy one, so if you have a bunch of information in a log alert and you're going to make one very similar with just a slight difference in maybe the text string that you're searching for, you can just copy an existing log alert, and that's a super quick, super easy way to get some work done quickly. The one next to it is going to be just to edit the properties of a selected log alert. You can double click on the log alert as well, and that will open up the properties panel. I'll show you all those in a second. And then that last icon is save log alerts. So as you make changes to them, let's say you have a dozen log alerts in this screen and you're double clicking and you're adding text and you're doing things to them. As you make those changes and click OK on those screens, a little red dot will appear next to your log alert, and that's an indication that you have made some changes but they have not been saved. So just keep in mind that when you see those, just click the save button. It would be illuminated at the top, and then it will go ahead and save all your changes to the database. Now, there's some additional controls that don't show up as icons, and in this case, if you right-click in some white space that's below your log alerts, you'll have the ability to add a folder. So if you want to organize your log alerts in folders so that they're a little easier to get to or easier to manage, you can do that. And then once you make a folder, you can then right-click on an actual log alert, and it gives you a little pop-up window that's going to enable you to either move that log alert to a folder, or if it's already in a folder, it gives you the ability to move it back to the root. And then the other option is to disable or enable the log alert. And when you disable it, and I'll show you this in a couple minutes, when you disable it, it will actually get grayed out a little bit. So there is an indication that it was disabled. And then if you enable it, of course, it's got the regular brightness of the text and the icon on there, so you know that it's enabled. So there's a few different log alert types that we have depending on the plugins that you have loaded. In my case, I've got HFM loaded, I've got a Microsoft SQL Server database loaded, and of course Accelatis has some by default. And you'll see here HFM has a couple of things: hacking attempt detection, subcube thrashing detection. That means some things to HFM administrators, but again, if it's nothing you're interested in, you don't have to worry about it. The database, the SQL Server database, has fragmentation, so if your tables get to a certain fragmentation percent, that you might take some other action to defragment it, or that a database lock is happening. And database locks are, when two different processes are contending for the same resource and they're both waiting for something to happen. Especially with HFM, you can get those situations where you have a database lock, and the log alert will tell you that's true. And then for Accelatis, these are the ones that everybody has. So you have a log size threshold, so you can be alerted on either the size in kilobytes or the size in number of records if it's a database log like HFM has. You also have log events or log event patterns. Those are very similar checks. The difference being a log event is if you see some string happen one time in your log. The log event pattern is if you see that string X number of times in X number of minutes happen, right? So it doesn't have to be a one per alert type situation. We also have a deployment compliance, which will just check to make sure that your servers inside of a particular Accelatis group have the same version of either DLL or executable or whatever, or the same settings in their in the registry and that sort of thing. I'll show you that screen as well, or a settings change to see if something in a product has changed. It will go through and give you that alert. And I just went ahead and took a couple of screenshots just to show you guys quickly. These are the HFM log alerts, and you could see the setup is very easy. The properties window I'm going to show you in a minute, but really the important difference in all of these is that last tab that you see when you create a new log alert. And these have sliders, right? So if the subcube release happens 4 times in 10 minutes, then this particular check would have alerted you to that. And you see the hacking attempt detection, same type of thing. You have a little slider, so if you get 10 failed logins in 1 minute, you know, that particular log alert will send you a message or an alert. The MS SQL Server checks that I have in place, the fragmentation one, you could see you give it a % of fragmentation. You know, you could do all tables or one table at a time, depending on which SQL Server table you are monitoring, right? So in this case, it's the HFM database, and you can see all this stuff in there. And then the one under it is there's even less to do, right? This is the database lock. So if something is locked for 2 minutes, in that case, it would have sent me an alert. And these are all of the base Accelatis alerts, and I know there's a ton of information flying at you from the screen, but if you look at them one at a time, it'll make sense. So the log file threshold you see in the upper left, depending on which kind of log, right, you could see megabytes or number of records, and the corresponding controls over on the right-hand side will change based on what you have selected there. Then immediately to the right of that is the log event and log event pattern windows. So the log event is real easy, just trigger on the contents if it contains a certain word or is whatever string. You can trigger if it's an activity or if it's an error or something like that. And then if you do the log event pattern, then like I said, it's how many times this happened in X number of minutes. So you'll have both of those for that one. And then on the bottom are the ones you don't see these used too often, but you certainly could use those. The deployment selection at the bottom left, and you could see you could pick out what types of files you're checking for or what properties you're checking for. And again, this will check all the servers in a particular group to make sure that they're all in sync. And then the bottom right is the settings change, right? So if something changes within these products, if it notices, hey, somebody changed something in the SBase config file to cause the max delay retry count, whatever it is. So this will just let you know that sort of thing happened. And the ideology really for all this stuff is broken down in just a couple of points. So some issues you can track right off the bat. You don't need it to happen, right? Like, so for a server or a service restart, something might show up in the log like every time that happens. And if you want to get alerted when that happens, very easy to do, right? You have some history, you go back, you say, oh yeah, every time I start HFM, it has this particular string in the log. So I want to know every time it restarts, and you can set it up to do that. Some issues have to be set up after happening once, right? So this whole log alerting module should not be a static screen. It's not something that you're going to set up and then you're just going to leave it alone for a while. This should be a dynamic section that you can go to, and if something happens in your environment, let's just say you had some issue, something happened in SBase, the user did this thing and it caused some major issues, right? So you fix your problems, but afterwards you can go back and you could say, hey, this is the error that happened, or this is the pattern that happened when that user did that. And once they did do that, we had to kill SBase, and then we had to do a restart or whatever you had to do in order to get it working again. You should be able to take that and then go back into the log alerting section and create a new log alert and say, okay, if I'm looking in the SBase log and if I see this event happen, I know that in order to fix that, I had to do this, I had to kill SBase, I had to restart it, I had to do whatever it is you had to do, right? And you could build an automation so that when that happens and you notice in the log that string, that we can automatically go out and we can proactively fix that problem, right? So it's almost like one of those, like a, fool me once, shame on, you fool me twice, shame on me. If it happens once in your environment, you should be able to come into log alerting and say, you know what, that's never going to get me again. You can come in and you can do all kinds of stuff here. And again, some things will make sense right off the bat. Some things, unfortunately, it's got to happen once in order for you to know what you're looking for. So my favorite band as a kid, Kiss, is showing us that we're going to create a live log alert. So let's go ahead and we'll do that right now. So let me pull up my system. I'm trying to save a little bit of time here by having everything up, but I'll show you here. Here's all those controls that I talked about right at the top. And if I make a change, in this case, I'm going to double click on my log alert, and that should bring up a screen. And let's just say I make a change here, right? Under properties, I've got my group, I've got my server that I'm running it under. The application probably doesn't matter. I've got my severity, right? So severity 5. And the name of my log alert is audit log clear notification. And from here, I could schedule it. If I don't do anything, it runs on a default schedule, which is every 3 minutes. But I could change it to run every hour if I wanted, or every day, or whatever it is, whatever pattern makes the most sense for you to run. You can also give it a custom trigger criteria, right? So that you want to know if this particular thing happens X amount of times in a row or for X number of minutes. In this case, I'm not going to use a custom trigger, but the event that I'm trying to trap here is actually the audit log was cleared, right? So what I did was I noticed that if I take this particular action on my Windows event log, I get this notification in the log. It says the audit log was cleared. So I can actually trap that, and you could see on the left-hand side that I have all of my logs that are available, and this ties back to this server, right? The group and the server. That's where it's getting this list from, right? So every time I click on it, it says, hey, I can give you the content of all of these logs. In this case, it's the Windows security log, so I highlighted it, and I'm triggering on the contents of the activity. In this case, it contains the audit log was cleared, right? So once I set that up, it's going to run every 3 minutes, and I don't know if you guys can see that. It is a little difficult to spot, but there is a red dot next to this, and you'll notice that the Save Alerts button now is illuminated. So once I click on Save, it says that my alert was saved. Now the Save button is not illuminated, and the little red dot goes away. That means that this alert is active, all the changes are saved, and it's ready to go. Again, if I take a log alert and I right-click on it, I get this little pop-up, right? It's enabled, or I could move it to a folder. I'm just going to show you if I click Enabled, and then I save that change, you will notice that the log alert is going to turn, as soon as my sandbox environment, there we go, log alert turns like a grayish color, right? So that's an indication that that log alert is not enabled, right? If I change it and hit save again, you'll see that the log alert comes up as the regular yellowish color. It's not grayed out anymore, and it's active. And then the other one is move to folder. I just want to show you this. If I click move to folder, I get this new pop-up where it lists out any folders that I might have created, or if it's already in a folder, I can click on root and it would just move it back beneath the root, which means not under any folder. But in this case, let's go ahead and move it to the demonstration folder. You can see my red dot shows up again because I need to save that change. So I go ahead and save it, and now it lives under the demonstration folder. You can closely use the activity analysis module with these log alerts because it's actually the same process that happens that triggers the alert that shows all this information. You can see here that I pulled up my security log, and you can see here is my entry that says the audit log was cleared, right? So that's really what I was triggering on. So once I know what I'm trapping, I come over, I can create my log alerts, and you can see over here in my alerts section that this is what it looks like, right? So it gave me my alert, and it said that it found the record, and it actually spits out the whole record, in this case, of what it found. So I can very easily get some information on it. And if I wanted to, I can have that launch an automation in the same way that you would have many of the other Accelatis things launch an automation. That's on flow on trigger, right? So if I had something that did a whole bunch of stuff, maybe an S-based flow, I know that this S-based flow kills S-base and restarts. Again, you could see how you can build some very proactive and very useful log alerts in this way. And that's pretty much all I've got to show you for today on log alerts. And again, any questions that I have not answered or that you want to ask, you certainly can ask in an email to support or myself. Next session, even though I misspoke last week, next section, definitely next week, is going to be custom failure criteria for health checks, and we'll go over how to set those up and what those mean. Again, the email addresses are on the screen. I really thank you guys for showing up and being a part of the Accelatis Essentials series. I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you.